Oh, sir. All right. So, like I said before, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make this flappy cone game. What I don't want to do is spend a lot of time making the assets. So I actually already made them ahead of time. They'll be both on Blackboard, and they'll also be, if you're on my website, they'll be above. You'll see, you can download them in the usual spots. So just, grab the file, unzip it. It'll be called Flappy Cone Start. And it'll be a .fla. All right. And when you open it up, it's going to look like this. And this is what you're going to see. And if you go to the library, I just want to go over what the parts are so you understand what we're making, so that you know what assets were created in order to create the thing that we're seeing. So right off the bat, the background is basically nothing really. It's purely graphical. It's just to have that parallax of like things moving at different speeds. So what you're going to see is we have background MC. Okay, so we have buildings. It's just these building drawings, nothing special. They're just drawings I made of these buildings. Very basic. There's drawings of clouds and the sun drawing. Okay. But those all come together to make this background MC. And I'm just going to back this thing up so you can kind of see it. And basically, if I hit enter, hopefully it'll play very slowly. A little too slowly for my liking. But basically what it does is it's just going to play, and these are just going to slide across, like so. Okay. Now you're going to notice that it does it twice, and the reason being is that I need it to end up looking like this. So I have to put... I want to mix it up, so I did this, this, and this, and this, and then basically this one will end up right here. So you're going to see it's going to go like this, and all of a sudden I'm going to pop in a new one, so that right here, I'm going to basically take the one that was over here, it's going to pop over here once it gets off screen, and then when it comes across, it will end up being where the other one left off. So you got to remember, this is what the user is going to see, so when we go to the first frame, you can see it's the same thing. Okay, so that's all this is. It's just a parallax animation of the clouds in the sky moving at different speeds and what have you, just so you can see it, right? So that's the background. Pretty straightforward. That's the first asset, basically. Let's do the pipes next, and then I'll come back to cone, because cone's a little bit more complicated. So basically, you're going to see it's these gap lines and these pipes, okay? So most of the time what you're going to notice is I'm going to have the graphic and then the animation, right? So same thing up here, right? I had the graphics, the various graphical components, and then I had all the animation in here. So the gap line is just a drawing of a line. And what that's going to do is that this is going to be a line that the user won't be able to visually see, but it will exist. And so the idea is that when the player hits this line, it's going to add to the score. And this is going to be a gap between our pipes. So above this will be a pipe. Right? So imagine I put a pipe right here. There'll be a pipe above it, and there'll be a pipe below it. So, but the player won't see this, but that way when they go through between the pipes, it'll hit this, and then we'll know that they hit it and that they made it through, and then we'll add to the score. Okay? So, and then there's also the graphic of the pipe, which is just a green block, and then you'll see that there's gap line anim and pipe anim, and they're actually exactly the same animation. I'll show you the pipe one first, or the gap one. So it's just that gap line, that object I made, and all it's going to literally do is just slide across the screen. So basically I just did the animation so that it would move, because our player is going to stay still. This is just going to move across, and this moves at the exact same amount as the pipe animated. So if you look at the two, see this one and this one, see how it's exactly the same animation? That way when the pipes move, I'm going to have a bunch of pipes I put in there, and they're all just going to move at the same speed. That gap's going to go between them, and it'll move at the same speed as the pipes, and that's basically how it works. So it's should be pretty straightforward, really. Okay, so we've got that. So we got our pipes and we got our things there, and then the last thing here is the cone. Okay, so most of these are again just the graphics. So I have the body because I want to just have the body. So I just have one piece for the body, and then I can just move the arms because the body doesn't have to do anything. So then there's the arm here, a leg, another arm, another leg. Okay. And then besides that, what we have, so there's all the pieces of the body, and then we basically have two animations that I use those for. So one is falling. So basically while he's falling, it's just going to play this animation, which is just his arms kind of going up. Like if he goes up, right, you're going to go, ooh, and fall. That's all it is. So while he's coming down, this is the animation that's going to play. And then flapping is this animation here. So, come on. Is it not going to play? Basically, it's him flapping, okay? So I just made this animation of him flapping. So when you click, he's going to play the flapping, and that's basically it. So he's either going to be falling or he's going to be going up. When he goes up, when you click, it's going to be flapping, and when he comes down, he's falling, okay? Now, the way that we did this is I put both of those in an object called player MC, right? So this is the actual player. This is the object that's going to run, all right? This is how it's set up. So what I have here is, let me make this bigger. Well, there we go. Make this bigger so you can see it. So basically, on the first frame of layer 1 here, this frame is the falling animation. Okay, so if I double click on this, you'll see it's the falling animation. That's what's inside on frame 1. So while it's on frame 1, it's going to do the falling animation. Okay, when it's on frame 2, this one is the flapping animation. Okay, so the idea here is that it will normally by default be on frame 1. So you'll see there's this action script here. So if I click on this, I'm just going to F9 to open up action script. You'll see it says stop. So basically, when the game's playing, this is what happens. It's just going to be on stop, and he's just always going to be falling. It's just always going to keep playing that falling animation. All right. But if you click, I'm going to use code to tell this to go to frame 2, and then it's going to run through this right here, which this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames, which is how many frames is inside, which actually it's more than 5, but it's the frames inside of here in order for, well, that's because the last frame and the first frame are the same thing, so that's why. So basically it's 5 frames, because I don't need frame, I just try to make it the same as the first one. So anyways, it's going to give it enough time to play through this animation, and that's what's going to happen here. So it'll be stopped, and then when you click, it'll say go to frame 2 and play, just like when we did our thing, when we did the interactive comic, right? We clicked and then it would play through the thing. So literally it's gonna be on this, but while it's on this, it just plays the animation of falling. If you click, it's gonna go to this, it's gonna play through this, and while it's on this is the flapping animation. And then when it gets done, it's gonna start back at the beginning and then stop again because the code here tells it to stop, okay? And then, like I said, the falling and the flapping animations are right here. And they're basically, that's what's on this, and that's what's on this. And that's the lump sum of it. And basically, we're just going to use that to code our whole thing just working. So it should be pretty straightforward. Hopefully you get a good enough idea of what we got going on. Most of it is relatively, I would say, simple. Okay. So that's what all those elements are. I'm just going to click back on this so that we can see the totality of what we have. And basically, it's just a typical kind of phone resolution. And first thing we're going to do is basically make all of our layers for all of our different things that we need. Okay, so we are going to need a background. Okay, that's going to be something we need. So I'll do background layer. And we're going to need, let's see, we'll say pipes. Okay, that's good. And we're going to need gaps. I don't know if that needs to be on a separate one, but we'll put it anyway. Oops, whatever. And we're going to need the player. So that's where our player character is going to go. And we're going to need our score. So I'm going to have a score that will also keep track of how many times that we've made it. Okay, so that should be pretty good. So basically each one of those elements need to go in there. So I'm just going to go to my background here and make sure I'm on my background layer, and I think it's this one. Real quick little tip and trick here is that if you look, you can see, I can't really tell which one of these have animations. I mean, I can kind of tell because this is the one that has everything in it, but there's a little play button. You can click on the play button and it'll actually play the animation in here very slowly. This isn't running very well, but anyway, there it is. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to drag it onto the screen here. And I'm just going to make sure that this lines up to this as well as I can. Let's see. Okay, good. And now if I hit Control Enter, if I preview it, good, and it's going to give me a stupid thing here I'm not a big fan of. It shows the Harman Company thing. Good. And you'll see there's our animation. It's playing. It's the background. And we get a nice little parallax. Yay. Okay. So that looks acceptable. All right. So that's the background. Then we have pipes and we have the player. I think what I'm going to do is actually just go ahead and do the player first, because I think that'll be, we're just going to get the clicking mechanism of it going up and down. Okay. So on the player one, I'm just going to go ahead and go open up the cone folder. We actually don't need the background. That's it for that. And I want to go to the player MC, and we're going to go ahead and we're just going to drop it here. Okay. And he looks very big, so I'm going to hit Q to make him smaller. So I'm going to hold Shift because, unfortunately, I think, is that a good size? I'm not even sure if that's the right size. I'm going to Control Plus. Make him a little bit smaller just because I don't want to take a risk. Okay. And we're going to put him, I think, more back here just so we have more time to, that when they come in, we have time to move up or down, you know what I mean? So I don't want to, and generally speaking, we'll put them about halfway too, so that's about halfway. So towards the back, right? Maybe even a little bit farther back, and then in the middle. That way I have room to go up or down when the game first starts. Okay, so now we have him here. Now, in order for the code to work, I can have many instances of him, right? I can drag more of him in here. In order for the code to work, I need to tell it the exact one that I want to work on. In this case, I want it to work on this guy. So I'm just going to go ahead and just name this player like that. Okay, so that'll just be our player. And whenever we say player, it'll be the player object, and that's how we're going to make it work. Okay, that looks acceptable. Yeah, so yeah, let's go ahead and start doing some coding. So I'm going to hit F9 to bring up our actions panel, or you just go to Window Actions, and then with the player selected, I want you to go to Code Snippets. Okay, and that went behind my screen here. And before we were doing HTML5 canvas, now we're doing ActionScript. Okay, so I just want to show you something. If you look at the HTML canvas, you'll see you have all these things in here, right? So there's a bunch of them in here. When I open up the ActionScript, you're going to see it's much more robust. There's a lot more things that basically we can do here as opposed to what we had before. All right. Okay. So what I want to do first off is basically have it that the object will just fall. Okay. So let's see. Bring an object to the front, generate random number, click to position and show an object height, stop a movie, play a movie clip. None of these are them. So the one I'm going to need actually is going to be this animate vertically, which we're going to use. Okay, so make sure that you do indeed have. Okay, we're currently okay. Make sure that you have the player object. Man, this thing's running super duper slow. Come on, move out of the way. Make sure you have the object selected, and again, I have the thing there. What I'm going to do is going to animate horizontally. Now, we're not actually going to use this, but I just want to show you what we're doing here. Come on, you can do it. There it goes. Okay, I'm going to get rid of all this extra gobbledygook. We don't need all of that. I'm going to delete that. Okay. Actually, we'll leave it down a little bit. All right, so what it's saying is saying player. We're going to add an event listener. So if you remember, event listeners basically means it's going to listen for something to happen, and then it's going to run a function when that thing happens. Okay, so this is the object. The object's my player, and then I'm running a method, which is just a function inside of an object. And the method I'm running is to add an event listener, and then that event listener needs two items, right? It needs the thing that needs to happen, and then the function that happens when that thing occurs. Okay, so in this case, we have event.enterFrame. So what that means is that every time we enter a new frame, it's going to run this function here. Okay, and I did horizontally and I meant vertically, but that's fine. So that means every frame it's going to run. And what we're going to do is we're going to change this code to act as our gravity, so that every frame it's going to move the player, it's going to animate the player going downwards unless we click, which makes the player go upwards. Okay? That's That's the lump sum of it. All right. So right off the bat, I want to change the names of this function. So this is built in, and then it created this function name right here, which is this right here, right? So when this runs, it's going to run this bit of code. So I just want to change this name here. So I'm going to change this, and we're just going to call it falling function, I guess. Falling down, we'll say. We'll call it falling down. Okay. Feels weird putting function in the name. Okay, so then I'm just going to call this falling down. Okay, so it's just good to name it what it is. Okay, so right now what it's going to do is it's actually, let's play it so you can see it, but it's going to move the player plus, wherever the player's position is, plus 10. So it's going to move the player to the right. Might be to the left, but it's going to move it every frame. It's going to move it 10 pixels. So I'm just going to preview it, and you'll see it's just going to move across. Hopefully. Yep, we get it, Harmon. Thanks. See? Fantastic. Super great. That's obviously what we want. We want it to constantly move it downwards. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this code a little bit. So it's going to be, so again, it's the player object, okay? Now you got to remember it's dot notation. And when it's dot notation, it means it's something inside of something else. It's the same thing as like a file folder structure where you have a folder, and then you have another folder in that folder, and then another folder, and then you have the file. It's the same idea, but instead of doing a /, it's just a dot. So inside of player, right, if I select this player, you'll see he has an X and Y coordinates. So literally what we're doing is we're saying take the player's position X and then add 10 to it for every single frame, and that makes it move this way. So I want to do it to Y, right? And I want to make it move downwards, okay? So what we could do instead is do minus equals, and then instead, so that number, when you put a number in for a value where you're trying to make something happen, if you put that number directly into the code, that's called hard coding. Which basically means, like, let's say I was playing the game, or I made the game, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, the gravity is too strong. If I want to change it, I have to go through and look for where the number where I put that gravity and then change the number there. What works better is actually to just go ahead and make a variable that holds it, that's at the top, and then whenever I change that variable, anything that has that variable attached to it, I don't have to go looking for it. I can just change it at the top. So we're going to make a custom variable up top here, okay? So we're going to go ahead and do the var player, oops, that's not right. Var, not player, what am I doing? Stage gravity. So this is going to hold our value, that is our gravity, and it's going to be an int, okay? And it's going to be equal to 0. Now, this is how they write their variable. So if you've done JavaScript or C# or anything else, every coding language has its own syntax, has its own way of writing things out. So this might be a little bit different. That's how they write it here. So it doesn't, you have to write it this way. So basically var is the keyword to say that this is a variable. You choose the name that you want. So this is just a made up name. I call it stage gravity because this will be the gravity of my stage. And then I put the type in. So in this case, it's an int, which means it's going to be a whole number. And then I put 0, which I don't want because it should be 2. I don't know why I put 0. So otherwise, you'd be floating into space, okay? So we're going to do player.y minus equals, and I'm going to say 2. All right? Now, if I go ahead and hit enter, control enter, sorry, or command enter if you're on a Mac, enter will just play in the thing. If I do control or command enter, it will play in the okay. And he should fall. Or, I'm sorry, he's going up. So it should have been plus equals. So he's... Bye! He's gone! Okay. So that should have been the other way. So it should have been plus equals. But that's besides the point. One of the issues that you're seeing is that he's moving at a consistent speed. That's actually not what I want, right? If you fall, you don't start falling at 9.8 meters. You start... Well, you do, but it's 9.8 meters squared. So basically, as you fall, you go faster and faster and faster and faster, right? If I drop the ball, it would start at not moving at all and then move faster, 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 faster. And then as it goes, it would get super, super fast until it reached terminal velocity, basically the max speed that it can before wind resistance stops it from going any faster. So this gravity we have right now is not increasing. It's literally just going at one speed. And that's not really what we want. So what would be better is to, this is what I want it to do. I want that the player starts out at 0, then it moves down, let's say 2. But then the next frame when it moves, so in one frame it'll move down 2 pixels. Then the next frame, I don't want it to move 2 again. I want it to move 4, right? And then the next frame, I want it to move 6, right? And the next frame, 8. So basically every frame, it moves faster. So it goes down faster, so it gives the illusion of moving faster and faster, okay? So we're going to need more than just the gravity. We're going to have something that actually holds its velocity. So meaning that the current speed that it's at, and then we'll add to the velocity every frame, and then that will make it go faster and faster. So we'll just do player velocity, and that will also be an int. And we're going to initially, whoa, what did I didn't, okay. That'll be an int. And then we're going to set that initially equal to 0, right? Because this initial velocity is going to be not moving at all until we add the gravity to it. So player velocity int 0. All right. So instead of player y equals plus whatever, we're going to change this a little bit. So I also didn't explain plus equals. So plus equals is the same as saying whatever it currently is and then add 2 to it. So plus equals means player.y is equal to player.y plus 2. So if player.y was 10, it'll now equal 12. You could do player.y equals, and we'll do it here actually just to make things easier. Player.y equals player.y plus player, velocity. All right. So that'll be the 1 bit of code. And then what we need to do is on the next frame. So that's fine. With that code alone, he's just not going to move. So we have to add to velocity every frame. So we're going to go ahead and do player velocity is going to be equal to player velocity plus stage gravity. Okay. So what this is going to do is going to say, okay, the players, this should be a capital P. My bad. Caps and all that really matter. So it's going to say, okay, take the current player velocity, and I want you to take, or the current player y, and it should be what it is, plus the velocity. So on the very first frame, it's going to start off with 0, right? And it's going to run that. But after it runs this, it's going to go ahead and write player velocity is going to be equal to whatever it currently is, which is 0 to start with, plus stage gravity. So that's going to run on the first frame. So initially it's going to be 0, but it's going to set this to 2. So when this runs the next time, player velocity is now 2. So player y is going to be 0, because it was 0 at the moment, plus 2. So now it's going to be, he's going to move down 2 frames. But then this is going to run. And it's going to say, okay, it was 2. Now go ahead and add the gravity to it. So now it's going to be 4. So the next frame, it's going to say player y is equal to player y plus that velocity, which now is 4. So it's going to move 2, then 4, then 6, then 8. You know what I mean? So every time it moves the frame, it's going to move 2 on the first one. That's going to move from that one, and it's going to go faster and faster. Okay? So let's go ahead and hit enter on that. And that's on every rendered frame. See how it says event for enter frame? So that means every time that moves to the next frame, this bit of code is going to run. Now we have to be careful with this. So see how he starts slow and then he gets really fast? So boom, we've created gravity. We are gods. So now he's moving much faster. All right. Unfortunately, I think there are ways of incorporating physics into this, but it would be like an outside force. One of the things that we do have to be careful about with this is this. And this is a big thing with game design. We'll talk about it, but we might as well mention it here too. You generally want to put as few things as possible on the enter frame. The reason being is that anything that's inside of this code now, it has to run every time it starts a new frame. And if you put a lot of things in there, things that maybe don't need to run every frame, it's going to start making the game run really, really slow. So generally, you try to make things happen not in there as much as possible. Only happen when they need to. Now, that's not really going to be entirely possible for us, just because of the way that we're making this game. But in the future, if you have an option of not putting it in there, don't put it in there. But obviously gravity has to happen every frame. I don't have any way around that. Every frame, I need it to move down. But you see, now we have it moving down. And the next video we'll do is we'll have it, when you click, it moves up. And then it will be practically there. Then it's just going to be about collision detection and things like that. All right? So hopefully, the next class, I'm going to go through, not this class, the next class I'm going to go through and I'm going to discuss coding more specifically. Like I'll have some stuff written down about it. But I like to do a class with it first so that when I'm referencing it, hopefully you'll remember when you did it before. I'm still going to try and explain it like I am, but that's why I actually like to do the code, then teach what code is, and then do code again. Because I feel like otherwise I'm just talking about something you have no idea what it is. Now you're going to get your hands a little bit dirty with it.